Welcome back to Small Business. It's not just the likes of ANZ and Telstra wanting more exposure to Asia. Small businesses also want to take advantage of the growing middle class there. But more than 60% of Australian SMEs think they are not skilled up to enter the tiger economy. Well, for more, we spoke to Tony Hood from chartered accountants and advisory firm William Buck.
Well, I think it's an imperative. The Australian market's of limited size, and if their product or services are capable of export, then they should be looking to Asia. Alternatively, of course, if their product is a domestic product, then they might need to be looking to Asia for some cost advantages on delivering their service or product.
Now, I know you look at whether it's an opportunity or a threat, but can you just give us a bit of colour around this? Because is it a bit of both?
Yeah, gee, that's a good question. To do nothing could well be to invite competitors in your market. So if you're not being sharp, then I'd imagine that the competitive state of the market will mean that you're not in business in 2 to 5 years' time. So it's a threat in regard to the Australian market is being eyed off by other markets within Asia around the world. And as a consequence, if you're not on your game, you're not going to be in the game.
Just want to get your view on which regions within Asia Pacific actually pose the best opportunities for small and medium enterprises.
So for SMEs, one element is offshoring to be price competitive. So in the past, for example, some of our SME clients, say with a turnover around 100 million, might have been landing container loads of product from, say, Malaysia, Vietnam and elsewhere in Australia and then disseminating it to the distribution chains. By being smarter and getting closer to, say, Malaysia, they're now consolidating their containers in Malaysia and shipping around Australia from there to save on domestic freight and domestic labour.
61% of CFOs don't think their business is appropriately skilled to do business in Asia. Why the lack of confidence?
Look, it's probably something outside of their initial focus. So these are SMEs, so Australian CEOs with turnover from 5 to 200 million. And they've probably been comfortable dealing in the Australian market only, and they haven't needed to venture offshore before. So for those 61%, clearly the unknown is probably a little anxious for them. Where do they get advice? What are their first steps?
What about cultural issues? Can this be a tough one to navigate, different sort of customs?
Look, the cultural issues are fascinating. Of those surveyed, very few suggested that there were issues of culture that they needed to consider. They were very comfortable with the cultural aspects. And that's probably disguised by so many of the SMEs having multilingual skills within their staff. But just because you've got multilingual skills doesn't mean you understand the cultural issues on the ground. So I think it's a really significant threat that's been understated by the CFOs surveyed.
Do international accounting standards make it more difficult, or are they sort of becoming more and more aligned?
Look, they're becoming more aligned, but it's not just the accounting standards, but the other compliance issues on a country-by-country basis. So interestingly, only those businesses that were actually doing business in Asia found the compliance issues a real concern. Those that were contemplating doing business in Asia didn't think those issues would be a concern. So we're seeing a learning process here where once they embark on even setting up an overseas subsidiary, that's when they get serious about the compliance and accounting issues. Whereas those contemplating doing business were less concerned. It shows a real information gap there, I think.
And what about the impact of the falling Aussie dollar? Does that help or hinder the progress?
Look, I think everyone loves a falling Australian dollar in the scheme of things, particularly our exporters. But it's probably those clients looking to set up footprints overseas are looking for a bit of a balanced return anyway. So the more diverse your both your supply chain and distribution chain is, the more or the less relevant is a relevant spot price of the Aussie dollar. So in the scheme of things, clearly a falling Australian dollar makes our exports more competitive. I don't think it has the same significant impact on the import side, because those players that have diversified their portfolio will have a mixed exchange rate footprint.
What else can they do to get prepared? I mean, should they always make sure they are well prepped before they actually enter Asia Pacific?
Look, I think there's a couple of things. Early on, the first thing you need to do is get out there and visit a few of the countries that you're contemplating setting up a point of presence in, and then seek advice. Recently, we had one of our clients offshore, and after extensive research, we chose Thailand as the place to set up their offshore manufacturing plant. Was Thailand the initial first choice? Perhaps not. But by actually visiting a few of the countries, talking to Austrade, we ended up choosing the right location for them. So get out there and get experience.
And that is all we have time for on this edition of Small Business. From the team here, thanks for your company.